morning to each and every one of you listening live, or if you're going to hear the replay. It's Motivational Monday, and I'm Teresa Palmer, who is hosting. I'm sitting in for Marissa, hosting the Motivational Mondays. And today we have what I think is a good topic, and it happens so frequently, especially with successful people who are accomplished, and that is imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like an imposter, even though you know you're not an imposter? You know your expertise, you know that you're accomplished, but yet it could be that fleeting moment when someone asks you to do something, or it could be moments that periodically enter into what you're doing. Or in the worst case scenario, it could be that it prevents you from moving forward and doing things. So we're going to get started today. We had a third person, Tiffany. I'm sure she'll be back with an internet connection. So, Nate, I'm going to start with you. Introduce yourself and give us your take on imposter syndrome.
Nathaniel X. Ross, Abundance Legacy, which is a nonprofit organization for personal growth and development. So that's kind of right along the topic line here of imposter, right? And personal growth and development is one of those things that help us get through that. But going through my earlier professional life, I felt like an imposter most of the time. The confidence came, as the years and being in the environment, and you speak with people who have been there for a while to give you advice and build up your confidence level. And even as you excel, you get to the point where you master the area that you're in, but then you get promoted or you excel beyond that spot, and then you feel like an imposter again. Because I knew my job and I knew it well, I did it well, but now I'm in this new position. Do I really deserve this position? Do people really see me as an expert? Which really just goes to show that you tend to be your own worst enemy. You walk into a room and you go, oh, these people are thinking this or they're thinking that. And in most cases, they're really not thinking anything. They turn to look at you because you're there. And within that first 15 seconds, you're in their mind and then gone, but you're still carrying that, what did they think about me, blah, 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 blah. So it's a very real syndrome. And I don't know anyone that I know that's successful that has not gone through it and still don't go through it, right? I've excelled for many years at what I do, but as I take on new challenges, it's like, oh, am I really the expert to be handling this, or for people to be turning to me for the answers?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's so true. And I know it happened to me recently because I was contacted by someone. I had been a guest on a podcast about 3 times, and I haven't seen or heard from this person in a few years, but apparently they've continued to follow me, and they've also followed this. And I got contacted by this person. And I said, I'd like you to write the foreword for my book. And it's a book on holistic health with self-empowerment. And my first impression when I spoke with this person was like, oh my gosh, can I really do this? Am I an expert? Well, yeah, I am, because I've been doing this for 30 years and I've written about it. And yeah, I am the right person to do the forward. But initially, I just felt like, can I really do this? And then I recognized what was happening. And I said, of course I'll do it. No problem. When do you need it by? We had a great conversation. So I think it's so true that these things sneak up on you. And I think once you're aware of what is happening and you catch it right away, you could completely turn it around. And now I'm going to go to Tiffany, and she can introduce herself and give us her take on imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm late. A little bit of internet connection issues, but hey, we're good now. So, Tiffany Para, editor in chief of Phoenix Fitness Fanatics magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. Man, this is such a great topic because that little imposter syndrome monster really can sneak up on you. And I noticed just recently being in some rooms with some really high powered people and going, oh my God, what kind of conversations am I going to have with them? And why am I here? And we all have very similar backgrounds. We're all, from health and wellness. We all have, some have very similar stories, and I've written about releasing weight. I've released over 120 pounds and kept it off for over a decade. So that does definitely make me an expert in it. But when I am in rooms with people that have PhDs and things like that, and they're talking about the same stuff, and I'm like, ooh, should I go? Maybe I need to go and study and get my PhD and this, that. But no, I don't. I don't have to do that. And we really just have to feel okay in our own skin and say, hey, you know what? If we've gone through some situation that has made us an expert, just know that, you know what? You don't necessarily need the papers that say, oh, I'm an expert in this. You can be an expert and you can be in those rooms with, anybody really. And, talk some of the amazing conversations. So it does come up. You just have to just breathe and just show up authentic and just be you.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think too, even when you have the credentials, I mean, I've got more credentials than I could even list. Not that all of them are that significant to everything, but I remember it must be going back about 20 years ago. Deepak Chopra, a friend of mine, was a personal friend of Deepak and his family. And we got invited to go to San Diego for Seduction of the Spirit and actually get to work with Deepak. And I was so excited about it, and I couldn't wait. And I got off the plane, and his staff had met us. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, when's the next flight out? Because I can't do this. And that feeling followed me all the way to the hotel. It followed me for an entire day that I just felt so, I can't say intimidated because nobody intimidated me, but I just felt so unworthy and so small of being there with people that had accomplished so much and were actually, I hate to use the word famous, I don't think that's a good word, but they were so well known with
Mm-hmm.
their expertise in the area. And Deepak took me aside and he said, you're here for 2 weeks. He said, we're going to be working together. He said, just take a breath, calm down. He said, nobody's here to bite you. He said,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's here to support you, and we will give you all the support that you need. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? He's absolutely right. There's no reason that I shouldn't be here. Come as myself. And once I was my authentic self, it just dissipated.
Yeah.
And so, I think we're our own worst enemies, and Nate touched on that. We're our own worst enemies when it comes to this imposter syndrome because we're the ones that think we're imposters, others don't. So, Nate, you could either elaborate on that or you could give your take on another piece of imposter syndrome.
Oop, you're muted, Nate.
Nate's muted.
I would say this because it's somewhat controversial, but it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be a lock fast rule. There's a saying out there that if you have 10,000 hours into a particular field, you are considered a master at it.
Mm.
And there is some truth to that, right? But not everything is not black and white.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend 10,000 hours, and I'm going to use you, Tiffany, as an example. A person could come into your gym and spend 10,000 hours in the gym working out. but it's not going to make them an expert. It means that they've put in 10,000 hours. Somebody else could come into your gym and put in 5,000 hours. And because of the intensity and their deliberate focus on becoming an expert or becoming the best at it, they can do it in a shorter period of time. Yeah. So that 10,000 hours is just a rule of thumb that was put in place based off of music from young people studying to become prodigies. But it's what is it that you want to do, and how intense are you in focusing on whatever area your expertise is? And some people become experts sooner than others. So I wouldn't get limited by the rules that are in place out there. Get out there, know your subject, live your subject, be your subject, get you to become expert.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that 10,000 hour rule is, really there's some merit to it, because the more you do something, like I will say something, I'm also a yoga therapist. And I remember a time, I'm going back now, the year 2000, the year 2001, when I got my yoga teacher training. And it was a year training, and it was every weekend, 10 hours. 20 hours a week for a year. And that was kind of the rule at the time, that, even once you finish the training, you still needed more experience in order to really be a really confident, really knowledgeable yoga teacher, because there was so much to it. And I'm talking about not just the postures or the asanas, but I'm talking about the whole Eastern Western blend of yoga as a spiritual practice. And then fast forward like 15, 20 years, maybe 15, and all of a sudden there were these weekend courses. There were these really brief trainings. That did they train people? Yes, they gave them the fundamentals, but the people still needed the more experience in order to be a really confident, a really knowledgeable yoga teacher. Sure, they could teach you the postures, but they couldn't teach you that really spiritual end of it, of what the true meaning of yoga is and what it really does, because that takes time to cultivate. It
Right.
takes further study. So I do agree with what Nate is saying, that that's not always the case. And I don't think we have to rely on that 10,000 hour
10,000
rule.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Tiffany, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think you have to rely on the 10,000 hours either. I think really, like you said, Nate, if you really are dedicated to it and you're giving it your all and you're really looking at every facet of it, taking it apart, you can get there faster, right? I mean, you can go to the gym every day, 3 hours a day, and just be doing what you see other people in there doing that you want to look like, right? That doesn't make you an expert. What makes you an expert is knowing how the body works, knowing how the body, recovers, how it warms up, how the muscles work together, how, if you work one muscle, you got to work the other muscle, other side, right? It's really knowing all that. And you can definitely learn that quickly if you just focus in, and yeah, you can get it done in half the time. Another thing I really want to touch on too is when you're in, rooms with people, when you start just being yourself and having conversations with people, you notice that these people, even if they are, as you were saying, very well known, right? I've been in some rooms with some very well known people now, and as I'm listening to the conversation, it's the same everyday stuff that we all go through, and you just have to know, hey, we're all people, we're all human beings, and we all have a special gift inside. Let's just share our gifts and just know that we don't have to be each other. That's just too much stress. Right. I think when I stopped worrying about trying to be like others, that lifted so much off my shoulders where I'm like, wow, and it opened doors. because now I'm not scared to go into the rooms because I know that I'm worthy to be wherever I want to be. So,
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
I give the flip side to that story you just shared?
yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
When I tend to do things outside of my comfort zone and excel at them. So I'm going to go back to when I was 25, 26 years old. They started a events conference planner certification in higher education. At that time, I was the youngest associate dean at Oberlin College. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not too far out of school myself, so let me go for that certification process. And I went on for that process, and I excelled at it, and I did it better than those people that were sitting on the panel who created the certification. And when they evaluated it and did my certification, they said, we can't pass you. And I'm like, why? And they said, because you didn't do this. And when I showed them the documentation and how it was done, they certified me, but they weren't happy because people like to stay in control. They like to put their parameters for certifications or whatever it is that they're licensing, et cetera, in place. But you can't let that kind of stuff keep you down. Don't let it stop you from asserting yourself and applying yourself and looking at new and different ways of accomplishing the same end goal faster, you know. But there is a flip side to that because some people aren't happy with you doing better than the system.
Definitely, definitely. And we've got another guest with us, my little dude here, Lucky. And
I love
Lucky is so authentic. Lucky has never been an imposter. And according to him, the only way to live is to truly be yourself. And he wanted to come on and say that the only time you're an imposter is when you're trying to be somebody else. And I totally agree with that. I think sometimes we try to fit into a mold. And I could honestly say in my profession, I've never fit into the mold. And it's cost me some things, some promotions, some things, because I couldn't go along with some of the narrative that was being said or the way I should act. But I always, at first, I felt that it was me, that something was missing from me because I saw others around me performing in a certain way, doing their job in a certain way, and they appeared to be happy. And yet, when I tried to do things that certain way, because I had a very holistic approach, and 25, 30 years ago, nobody wanted to hear that. I mean, there was no mind, body, spirit. There was only body, there was no mind or spirit. It was, you're a healer, this is it. People come to you to be healed. And it was a very arrogant type of thing, also, because I also worked in cardiology, cardiac surgery, which are specialties. So I felt it more. And for a long time, I felt it was me, that I was missing something that I had to change. And I tried. I even got a pretty high management position. And I would say after a year, landed up basically, they preferred that I resigned because I was bucking the system, and nobody liked that at all. It was like, you can't say that, you can't do that, you can't talk about these things. That's not how we do it. And nobody wanted to listen at all. So I landed up, resigning, being a clinical person, being happy with that, and then found a holistic cardiology practice where I could be holistic, and actually found an urgent care where I could be holistic. So I think, for me, it was trying to be that. Was I an imposter? Absolutely. Because I was trying to fit into something that wasn't me, that just wasn't me, and it didn't work. So I think the only time that we're really imposters is when we're not being ourselves. And maybe that creeps into when people ask us to do something or ask our expertise. Maybe deep down inside, we feel like we're going to have to not be ourselves. What is your take on that, Nate?
I don't do anything at this stage in my life. I don't do anything that's not in alignment with my value system. If someone asks me to do something, I can politely turn them down. Or depending on who they are, I tell them, I'm not buying what you're selling here, and I don't want any parts of it. Um, Again, it's just sticking true to what your values are and participating, because nobody can make you do anything. Right. If you get to choose to say, yes, I will, no, I won't. A lot of what happens with people is they're caught up in the rat race and the rush of all of this. And they think, oh, I got called by so-and-so, I'm going to be on this person's show, I'm going to do this. And they think that that's really elevating them because they're in demand and being pulled, but everything is not good for you.
Right.
So people need to slow down and, understand what their value system is and say, is this in alignment with what I believe and what I do?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, politely decline. That's just my take on it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's an excellent take that to be yourself. And like you said, we get caught up in the rat race. We get caught up in doing things. And sometimes we get involved with stuff that's not in our best interest
Right.
because we try to fit either a mold or we say, oh, if I do this podcast, it's got 100,000 viewers or whatever, but it may not be your audience. So even though you may have 100,000 people listening or listening to that particular podcast, they may not be listening to you because if you're not being yourself and it's not what you are really meant to do in your purpose, it's not going to get you anyplace because those people are going to tune you out because they're also going to feel that energy. So, Tiffany, what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Nate. And I'm one that if it doesn't feel right in my energy, I don't do it because I was that yes person for so long. And being that yes person, it took me to a point where it really hurt my health. And it once it starts doing that, and you don't even know, you're saying, yes, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And you're putting yourself in these places, like you said, you're on these podcasts that nothing comes out of, there's no comments, there's no this, that, it really is not in alignment with you. So I typically take a breath and just ask myself, is this in alignment? And if I feel something in my gut that's like, then I just say no, because I don't want it to negatively impact me like it has in the past with saying yes to everything. So that's really my take on it. It's just if it doesn't feel right with my energy, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It took me a little while to get there because, like I said, when I first started in my profession, I wanted to climb to the top, and I did climb to the top, but then realized that I was in the wrong place. It wasn't even where I wanted to be, and it made me miserable. There were a couple things that came up that could have been health challenges, and thank God they weren't. But it was then that I sat back and realized that, okay, I climbed to the top. I'm this, I'm that, but I'm not happy. I just don't like it. It's not me. And now, how could I be me? So I think that's a process. I know for me, I was always taught to please everybody.
Right.
And I was kind of taught to, I wanted to please my family. I wanted to please everybody. I still find myself sometimes falling into that. Like where recently, even just playing a sport that I enjoy. And I felt like I had let somebody down, which is silly. I mean, a 71-year-old person isn't going to the US Tennis Open anyway to have the fame and fortune. But I felt so, it was like, that people pleaser. I didn't please this person because I had to leave and they wanted to keep playing. And it was silly, but that's what happens to us when we hesitate to really just stand in our own skin to be who we are.
Yeah.
So I think this imposter syndrome, it's very, very real.
Oh, yeah.
And from what I'm getting from our conversation here is that although it's real, we kind of bring it on ourselves because we may doubt ourselves. We
Mm.
may think that, okay, I don't have either the credentials or the education, but I have the experience, or I'm getting into things that I don't particularly like. It's not aligned with my energy, my soul, and I'm just doing it because I want to participate or because I'm told I have to participate. And that's where we run into problems. So I think that we could avoid this entire imposter syndrome just by being confident in ourselves, knowing that our experience, regardless of, how we got that experience, usually life experience is actually the best way to become an expert because you actually have the what am I trying to say? You actually show what could be done. Like Tiffany, you lost 125 pounds. That's an expertise because number one, not many people could do that. Number two, you're here to show that.
Mhm.
And it's like if Tiffany could do it, it's a shared story. Well, if Tiffany could do it, I could do it. So
Right.
again, it's all about our authenticity. So, what would your last words be to our audience, Nate, about avoiding the imposter syndrome?
I'm not sure that you can avoid it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you just make sure that the people that are in your inner circle help you to get through it. Because it's going to show up. Unless you're stagnant, it's
Mhm.
going to show up. So if you empower people to let you know when it shows up and how you're showing up so that you don't get caught up in it, I think that's the answer, or at least that's what works for me.
Very good. I like that. That's why I love this panel because I always get so much inspiration from our panelists, and I love everybody's take on everything. And Tiffany, share with us your last inspiration.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to get over, I mean, like you said, Nate, it's always going to come up, but just be yourself, and when you're yourself, just true and authentic, your people, your tribe will attract to you. So if you start seeing people fall off here and there, they weren't for you anyway. So just know when you show up authentic and true to you, those people that need to be in your life will be there. They'll come.
Absolutely. It's kind of like build it and they will come.
That's
I
right.
actually forget the movie. I think it was something about a baseball field, Field of Dreams, I think.
Fields of Dream.
Yep. Kevin Costner.
Fields of Dreams. Kevin Costner, yeah. Build it and they will come. And I think you're absolutely right that, build your own authenticity, build your own expertise. And then when you put that out there, that's going to then be attracted back into your life. So, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And I
Thank you.
hope that we gave you some inspiration, gave you some knowledge that perhaps you didn't have. Maybe you have more knowledge than us. So please put it in the comments, make comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on the social media. We'd love to hear from you. So, from the Own It family and the Phoenix Fitness Fanatics family, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next week. We have to end here.